Hi. Yet another story about our first year MSc class in the Department of Geology of University of Kerala. According to the syllabus that was in force in the 1963 year, academic year onward, had in the scheme of examination during the second year a report on based on the independent but supervised study of a team of students not exceeding more than 3 as part of the final examination. Well, in 1964, we were in the second year and we had 2 new faculty, Rajendran Nair and Raju Philip, joining the Department of Geology, making the total of teachers 4. And in the month of December, first week, was decided as the field study part of the geological report as part of the final examination. And I, A. Thomas, and K.K. Ramachandran, we were in the first group A, or the first batch, and Mr. Krishnamurthy and Bhaskar Nair constituted the second batch, or the other batch, one short of the first batch. Because we were in total only 5 students in the first year of the MSc class admitted to the University of Kerala in 1963. And Professor K.K. Menon was in the overall charge of both teams, and Rajendran Nair assisted our group in the field, in the field process procedures, the armed data collection, and so many other things related to the field work. In fact, it was actually a glimpse for us as to what a geologist would do on an independent study as part of a field program. So we were given or asked to take up the study of a location called near Trivandrum, of course, south of Vizhinjam, and the tertiary cliff section at Karchal. These days, then also it is also known as, another name was Adimalathura, because the cliff was a backshore cliff, unlike the Varkala cliffs. The cliff section was cut by the shoreline beach processes, wave erosion and so on, but it had taken place in such a way, such a distant geologic past. Of course, during the Neogene only, after the deposition and upliftment of the Varkala basin sediments, the waves no longer reached the foot of the cliff, or the so-called toe of the cliff, let me say it like that. And there is at least one long row of houses facing the ocean in front of the foot of the cliff. And this roughly measured, I would say that say 3 kilometers. The southern border of the cliffs was the Karichal Kayal, and the stream originating from the Karichal Kayal and joining the Arabian Sea. The northerly end of the cliff is actually what a place called Arimala temple, which is actually sitting on, the temple sitting on rather a exposure of condalites. And in fact, the beauty of this Karichal cliff is that you can see perhaps the only place in Kerala where an exposure of the contact between the underlying or basement rocks, altered basement rock, Precambrian crystalline condylite, and over it, the layer of sedimentary sequence, argillaceous and arenaceous rocks sitting there. There is no lignite exposure in this cliff, even though, this was, there was no borehole data, and therefore some geological reasons are there why there is no lignite. Because we are looking at a different part of because we are very close to the unconformity or the contact between the crystalline rocks, basement rocks, and the overlying sediments. And we were camping in a place called Mukola Junction, in a repurposed tea shop, I may call it that way. We were three of us, along with occasionally Rajendran Nair in this camp. And of course, the facilities that are available are very minimal, or rather, we were not exposed to the kind of optimal facilities that one would expect in a camp. For first and foremost of all, there is no bathing or toilet facilities. We had to do it in the open air, early in the morning, in the backwaters of the property where we stayed. Then our bathing in the evening was in a stream with the crystal clear water. These days, this is the no crystal and no clear water is available in a small stream, and because of the frequency of people utilizing the stream during daytime or in the evening, we made it a point to be there after sunset, so that we can revel there in these waters. And what about the food? Food is not a very difficult proposition. There were 2 tea shops in the Mukola Junction, and we alternated with these people in the tea shops. And what had happened was, we finally gravitated to favor one of those tea shops, and because he was very considerate to us, to our purpose. And what he was doing, we will have our idli sambar breakfast, then we will get a idli sambar packet to be eaten at the lunch time, for eating at the lunch time, during the lunch time. And our purpose chiefly was to walk up the cliff, which is fairly tall, 75 to 80 feet at some places, and then do a detailed stratigraphic documentation. In the sense, the lithological succession in that section we wanted to document. And in that process, Professor Rajendran Nair was very helpful. He also climbed up with us to the cliff top. And then, something about the cliff rocks. The rocks here in this section is very interesting because toward the top you have no laterite and only soil, red soil. And then there is a succession and an alternation of argillaceous and arenaceous rocks, sedimentary rocks. Another thing is that it is very difficult to identify one bed of laterally extending bed of argillaceous clay rock or a sandy rock. Instead, they were kind of lenses which will alternate with the other alternate with what is called an argillaceous will give way to arenaceous vertically, and laterally the very same thing happened. Those days we did not know the cause of this kind of alternation. Okay. Then, of course, you know what we did? Along this traverse we took there in the vertical sense, we measured the thicknesses of the different argillaceous and arenaceous strata. We had thicker argillaceous layers cumulatively as well as individually compared to the arenaceous layers. To the north of the first profile or the section we measured, there is an exceedingly interesting feature. There was a unconformity between the overlying tertiary and underlying altered Precambrian chondrites. This contact, of course, had a conglomerate. Very interesting, the conglomerate, the class were not hard rock class. They were instead portions of the ferruginous sediment of broken, redeposited whatever into and as part of the contact. The rock basically is the class were ferruginous and the matrix was something that appeared to be clay, which is in fact not a clay. So another interesting part is, Professor Menon will show up, or K.V. Kishan Nair sir will show up with in their own cars to the field camp, and on that day accompany us to the field. Of course, Professor Menon came a couple of times because when we told Professor Menon that there is a conglomerate there, and he was quite curious about the conglomerate. For that, the reason is that such a neatly developed concrete contact between the younger and older series were not available in the rest of the state of Kerala. So it is like a textbook example, and Professor Menon called it a oligomictic conglomerate because the class were not extraneous to the basin of deposition. And in fact, Professor Menon had written a paper and published it in the Geological Society of India bulletin those days. Now, the second part of the work was to collect samples of beach sand from the shore face at an interval of roughly about a mile between Poovar and the Adimalathura. And this sediment sample naturally was, we were told how to collect it, how to pack it, how to label it, and how to transport it. Those days, plastic bags were not available. That is the interesting part. So we had to use some kind of paper bags that we made ourselves and wrapped around with the newspaper. So these samples were, of course, naturally, they were all taken to our lab. Then on the land area, on the crystalline rock area, we were also told how to go there, reach there, check out there. And on the first day, Professor Rajendran Nair sir accompanied us, and then he taught us how to measure the strike, how to measure the dip, how to measure the apparent dip, how to measure such things in the field, and record it systematically, as well as how to collect samples, or what he then called oriented samples. So once the work was complete, we came back to the geology department. We stayed, our student party stayed for about 15 days in the camp, in the field camp. And the teachers, of course, made infrequent visits to supervise our progress and also to monitor our speed of learning, let us say. So once we came to the lab, from month of January onwards, it was a hectic time for us. We were all spending larger amounts of time in the laboratory. The team of Krishnamurthy and Bhaskaran Nair, they were working purely on crystalline terrain north of Vizhinjam, which including Kovalam headlands. And we were making tin sections. Padmanabha Pillai, or as called Sami, he helped us. He taught us how to make a thin section. We had, luckily in the department, a thin section cutting machine, unlike many other new departments of geology anywhere in India. And these thin sections were scrutinized for their mineralogy only. And we did a model analysis of these thin sections of the rock samples. Not too many, but 3 or 4, because that is the time we had available before us. Then, out of these sediment samples, we separated the heavy minerals from each samples. We mounted them on the Canada balsam and with the Canada balsam on glass slides and studied it under the microscope. And Professor Menon helped us to identify the various heavy minerals and making the counts of heavy minerals in another way of model analysis of sedimentary particles. And then we made some histograms of the change, or bar charts of how the various mineral species change from Puvar to Thiruvananthapuram. I mean, not Thiruvananthapuram, Adimalathura, or rather up to Adimalathura. But if you went there today, you will not see this, what is called the contact. If you went there today, you will not see even the sections, which is where you have the very interesting features, because there it is full of houses and a huge church and related structures are built in front of the what is called the contact. Unfortunately, this is something nobody can know. Authorities never worried about, nor they thought of controlling. This is the fate of most of the geological occurrences in India. Another thing, later on, M. Nair and L. Gopalakrishnan identified the matrix of the conglomerate as bauxite. It was also it also appeared in the Geological Society's journal. Now, we wrote up the report, teachers, including Professor Menon, in fact, occasionally dictated our report. And our report finally went to the examiners. Our examiners were Professor M.S. Sadashivaya of Karnataka University and Professor Leenananda Rao of Madras University. For some reason, we had with the meager facilities, excellent work according to the examiners, according to that type, the standards they had set during the 1960s. So finally, all of us got passed with a first class in MSc Geology, and I got I stood first, a first class first rank. That is how I was trained and taught how to be a budding geologist. And that much for our field work and the program of study and the interesting aspects of our camp in Mukolakal. Thank you.